Huseynova Ludmila, a resident of the unfortunately still occupied Donetsk. Fortunately, I am free now. I was released in October in 2022 during the so-called Big Women's Exchange. Where were you living at the start of the full-scale invasion? At the beginning of the full-scale invasion, I lived in jail number 5 of the city of Donetsk. I was a prisoner. I was arrested in 2019 and I was in captivity until October of 2022. Unfortunately, I learned that a full-scale invasion had begun in the cell number 18.10. There was a TV working, but the TV was only Russian and local. It was there that I saw Putin's speech, and what he said were very scary words.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
How did the war affect you? It's terrible. This is, of course, a horror. And the attitude of those who guarded us became worse. They began to abuse you even more. They began to shout that no one needs you, that everyone will forget about you now, that you will rot here in this prison. We didn't believe it. I was kept in a cell with female criminals who were there for murder, for drug trafficking, for arms trafficking. Many of these women fought on the side of the Russian, and this also affected their attitude towards people like me. It was very tough. There were a lot of problems, scandals, even fights. Were you detained for your pro-Ukrainian position? So, I was detained in 2019 for my pro-Ukrainian position. I managed to get out of prison the so-called indictment, which was given to me in 2022. It says that I was detained for pro-Ukrainian views, for nationalist views. I was assigned 4 articles, 3 articles for extremism, 1 article for espionage. They definitely didn't negotiate with me, and for the first 50 days they kept me in isolation. And this is not the place where they negotiate. You can kill a person, you can kill his will, his strength, to convince with fights, violence, torture, but you can't convince with such methods. They didn't convince me. Started from the first day I was brought. On the way, when they were driving me, they put on handcuffs and put a bag on my head. During these 50 days that I spent in isolation, I did not see the sky and the sun, and I had the opportunity to take off the bag only in the cell. There were windows painted with white paint, so I didn't see anything. And it started with the fact that they brought me to some room. I didn't know where exactly, but they forced me to undress, and it was complete undressing. They touched me, pinched me, beat me. I don't know how long it was. It's not that I was scared, but just like time stopped. And then I heard the voice of the person who was directly detaining me. He said that was enough, gave me opportunity to get dressed, and then threw me into the cell. And there I was heard the girl's voice. She said that I could take off the bag and she explained that it was isolation. And you were detained in 2019. You were not touched for 5 years or what? No, they want me for 5 years, starting from 2014. I found out that Donetsk was already occupied and our town where I lived was still free. All refugees came there, we accepted them, helped them as much as we could. And then I found out that in our district it stopped funding a children's boarding school. And I went there. It is about 20 kilometers from the place where I was. And I saw that it was a boarding school for children with developmental delays. But they were normal children. They just lived in socially maladapted families, and after the boarding school was closed, these children were returned to the same families, and the children were very hungry, they were almost undressed. And just by a miracle, at the end of the 2014, my friend broke into the semi-occupied city of Novozovsk. She is a newspaper journalist, and I told her about these children. She brought children's toys, New Year's gifts. We went together to those children. There were about 25 of them. The children were brought New Year's costumes, toys, some sweets, but they didn't have a smile on their face. Not a single smile among these children. And we saw one boy. It was already winter, and he had sneakers with holes, and his feet were even without socks. And his leg just sloshed in a puddle of snow and mud. It was terrible because it is the 21st century. They were blue with hunger. Ola and I decided that she will start collecting clothes among her friends in Kiev and sent it to Mariupol through acquaintances. At that time, Nova Poshta was working in Mariupol, and I took those things across the demarcation line and brought it to these children. But besides that, we brought Ukrainian books to these children, handed out postcards signed by Ola and friends, and these postcards were probably the best gift for these children, because no one had ever said the words written in these postcards to them in their life. I remembered one postcard. It was signed, "Dear grandson, we will give you a sweater, a book, goodies, and we really hope and believe that everything will be fine in your life. And very soon this war will end. Signed by your grandparents." He simply hid the postcards because no one had ever said such words to him in his life. It was until 2019 they warned me several times. I visited those children at school, where they studied, where they came. I was given a hall or a classroom where I met with them, where the children tried on clothes and talked. And there were several times that the director said, "Well, I am sorry, but you are not allowed. I received a ban for you to enter here." Of course, I hid all the books, I hid these postcards, I have already transported things many times. They saw that these were things that had already been used and nothing of the sort. They knew that I was helping these children. One day I didn't have time to check these bags, and luckily this particular bag was not checked. I brought this bag to these children, and right in the classroom I started to open it. We started to hand out the things, and one of the boys shouted, "Look at my t-shirt." And I saw that someone put patriotic t-shirt with a coat of arms. And there was also the inscription "Glory to Ukraine." And I understood that it's very dangerous. If it was seen at the checkpoint, it's just shooting on the spot. I want to say that he was the only kid who said that, but another boy came up to him and took it away. He said, "You didn't see it, and we didn't hear it." He gave me these things, and I also hid them to bring home. And already at home I hid again. Can you remember how your detention took place? Yes, of course, because this is a day and time that simply divided my life into before and after. And it was the 9th of October, somewhere around 8 o'clock in the morning. I was going to work. I just left the house and this car stopped and two men jumped out and just pushed me into this car. They said nothing at all. That is, you didn't understand why? I understood why. When I went to get these children's things, of course I got to know the volunteers from Mariupol. I knew the girls who helped our boys to defend Mariupol, and that time they were in Shirokino. I knew what kind of work they were doing, and I helped as much as I could. I always gave money and products, and the guys who were there gave me our Ukrainian flag with their signatures, and they wrote "To the Patriots of Novozovsk" in capital letters. And I was able to simply hide this flag on me and bring it to Novozovsk. I showed it only to such close friends in whom I was 1,000% sure. But I made a mistake. I took a picture of it, sent it to someone there from the Free Territory. Later, I find out that this was the last straw for detention. Well, I understood what could have been the reason for that, except my position, except that I didn't hide my position at all, except that I refused to issue a Russian pension when I turned 55 years old. Probably I am the only one who refused and announced it. And it was also such a challenge, but with this flag, it was probably the last straw, and it happened. What exactly did they tell you? What did they arrest you for? For a month they didn't say why I was detained. A month of no execution, no explanation of where I am being taken. For what period? So you didn't understand what happened? I understood why, but I hope that the worst that will happen is that they will hold a conversation and write a protocol and simply take me to the demarcation line and say, "Go away, you will never be there." I thought to myself that it was good that I always had my passport with me in my bag and there was some money there. I thought that a few days would be enough for me until relatives and friends were found. At that moment, I didn't think that it would end in such a 3-year detention. My relatives didn't know where I was. They were looking for me everywhere. the husband returned from Kharkiv. They searched all over Donetsk and were in morgues and hospitals. In these institutions of the so-called Republic, no one said anything about where I was being held. Then my sister found a lawyer. He was not cheap, and he was allowed to be my lawyer. And when I was already taken for questioning to the investigator, there was already a lawyer there. And he said that my relatives submitted me for exchange in Kyiv, but there is no hope that they will just let me go, and all we need is to agree to all the charges, sign everything so that the investigation ends as soon as possible. And then the case will be transferred to court, there will be a verdict, and after that there will be an exchange. That is why he said that everything must be signed. At that time I didn't have any article yet. The only thing is that I really asked him to transfer me from isolation, and I am very grateful to him for that, because it's a horror. What did they want from you? Why did they do it? They don't explain it. It is simply a desire to show one's strength in front of a woman in chains and with a bag on her head. Such a method of self-affirmation. Did men or women do it? They were only men, and they installed video cameras in the cells. We had round-the-clock supervision. You are constantly being watched, and you have to do everything under these cameras, and change clothes, and wash, and do other natural things. That's how they asserted themselves. When the lawyer appeared, and through the lawyer they gave me a small handout, water, candy, they were not even ashamed to take from that handout. That is, you see that there was a package of water that was torn, and they took more than half of the water. Or a bag with candies, it was simply torn, and there were a few candies left. They were not ashamed to do even this. This is how they could do, these people who have no help, no rights. Please tell me about the cases of murder in cells or the execution or the death penalty, because I heard that this happens in the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. There is now a moratorium on the death penalty. They brought me a court order. I was not taken anywhere, and there was no lawyer. And it was written there that in connection with the moratorium on the death penalty, we cannot execute, and we will not judge you. This moratorium could be lifted at any moment. And about how you can remove a person, you can drive to suicide, you can negotiate with the criminals, and they just kill you in the cell. Where I was among women, I don't remember this happening, but there were cells on the floors above, and juveniles were kept there for some time. Above us, across the floor, there was such a case with juveniles. A young child of 17 years old was simply hanged in a cell. But they can help even close to those who are sick. In our cell there were several women who were sick with tuberculosis. Most of the women were sick with AIDS, and you are at risk of catching some illness because sharp corners, bugs, cockroaches, and at any moment you can get this disease. She even had syphilis, a venereal disease. It is also a danger. When you went here to free Ukraine, could you believe that you finally got out? I don't know. I still sometimes don't believe it. It seems to me that I have a bad sleep due to fact that sometimes you are afraid to fall asleep because you think that you will wake up and it will be the same as it was so these years. It's such a feeling. No, I understand that I am free, that we are walking with you now, but sometimes it seems that these are decorations. I say this because I know how many women are still behind bars. I just know how many of these women are still in captivity. Some of them I know personally. Every day I am very sorry, and it hurts to know that at this very second they don't see the sun, they cannot breathe fresh air, they don't see their relatives for years, they don't have any rights, and at any time anything can happen to them. It happens. I talk about it, I will talk about it. I hope that the more we talk about it, the more respect and empathy our society will have for women and men who have experienced this. Unfortunately, this happens especially when it is a small village, then they look with contempt. Maybe they don't say that, but they can say something behind the back. So I ask for more empathy, more understanding and more respect. Understanding that our people, our Ukrainians, are being illegally detained in the occupied territories these days. This should be recognized as a war crime, because it is also one of the types of the war crimes against the citizens of Ukraine. Time heals, in your opinion? No, it cannot be cured. There is a chairman of our organization, Ira Dolgan. It happened to her in 2014. She was one of the first. The whole world saw the photo that saved her life. When in Donetsk she was tied to a post wrapped in Ukrainian flag, and all the passers-by who passed by beat her. I will remind you that the militants captured Irina Huseynova, accused her of helping the Ukrainian military. The apotheosis of torture was a so-called pillar of shame in the center of the city. The terrorist pinned a woman to him with the national flag, and everyone could make fun of her. The photos showing supporters of the occupied territory mocking Irina Dolgan were on the front pages of the world's newspapers. A woman wrapped in a yellow and blue flag is being tortured right in the center of Donetsk. For several hours she stood by the pillar while supporters of the terrorists patted her, beat her, and promised to tear her to pieces. Some lightly kicked and moved on. A mad woman jumped out, opened the trunk, grabbed tomatoes from there, and started throwing them at me. It seems to her that this was not enough, and she grabbed 2 tomatoes, ran up to me, and began to press these tomatoes into my eyes. With all her might, she cussed. The terrorists imprisoned Irina at the moment when they received photos that showed that the woman was helping the Ukrainian military. The militants immediately began to beat the names of other volunteers out of her, but Irina remained silent. She was kept for a week, and it was scary to imagine what happened to her there when she was not seen. I know that she is a very strong woman, and I'm very grateful to her for the fact that she began to gather such women around her. I'm happy that she came to meet me when I was released from captivity. She told me about this organization and I saw support in them, but time doesn't heal. What will you do first after the victory? After the victory, I will go to my city and from a secret place I get that flag that was given to me, to the patriots of Novozovsk, because it is still hidden.